Today, I have the pleasure of speaking to Alynn Godfroy of the Godfroy Financial Group here in Amherstburg. Among other things, she's a financial retirement specialist, best-selling author, a notable speaker with over 2 decades of experience. Great to have you with us in the studio, Alynn.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Before we get into the specifics of the services that you provide, perhaps you could share a little bit about your background and what motivated you to pursue a career in financial planning.
So I actually went to the University of Windsor, spent most of my life here, and it wasn't until I was in my 3rd year of the Bachelor of Commerce program that I realized that accounting was not the path I wanted to take. So I majored in accounting and finance, but no offense to the accountants that are listening, but it seemed a little dry. So, but I actually had a financial planner. So I was 21, almost 22 when I bought my first house. So I had gone in to see him for a meeting and we chatted about investments. I had life insurance coverage and I thought this seemed like a cool job. So I did an aptitude test and I started working for Clarica, which is now Sun Life, right out of university back in 2003. And was there for about 3.5 years. And then I ventured out as a broker and I've worked as an independent financial advisor since then. So 21 years in the business. So I have the background to apply the accounting background to my day-to-day job. So that's how I got into the industry.
You obviously found your vocation. May I ask you a general and perhaps fairly naive question? We all know we should be diligent with money, just for the ordinary person out there, trying to make ends meet. What would be your one best piece of advice?
I think just being mindful of what you're spending and what you're bringing in. So we do budgets for people, and I know most people don't like to keep a budget, but it's kind of like if you're trying to lose weight, you know, and you're tracking what you're eating, if you don't put down that, you know, you ate 4 Oreos before bed or you ate a half a bag of chips, you're probably not going to get to your goal weight as quickly. With your finances, same thing. So people will come in, will enter all their information into a spreadsheet, and then it'll show they have maybe a $3,000 surplus as an example. And they say, well, I don't have $3,000 left at the end of the month. And then when we have a conversation and we look at all the miscellaneous expenses, you know, I'll say, well, do you go to Costco? You know, and you go to Costco and you can't leave there without spending $400 or $500. Well, if you do that once or twice a month, well, you know, there's $800 to $1,000 that you've missed. I find that people drastically underestimate how much they put on their budget for their spending for eating out, groceries, you know, trips to Tim Hortons and Starbucks for coffee. And, you know, there's no judgment, but I think the key is just looking and saying, okay, if you maybe scale back on a few things and then start tucking money into a tax-free savings, an RSP, depending on what investment vehicle is best, then if you're a little more tight on money, then just being mindful of where those dollars are going, you can be a little bit more successful. And just knowing where your actual dollars are going. Yeah,
that sounds very sensible. Just being mindful, as you said, paying attention to what you're spending and where it's going.
Exactly.
Many people I meet in Amherstburg, I have to admit, are a similar demographic to me. And they're making the transition into retirement or may be retired. And I understand that this is one of your particular areas of expertise. How should we approach such a major transition in life from a financial perspective?
So back again to that budget. When I meet with people, I say, okay, what do you have coming in right now? What do you have going out? There was this old adage where financial people would say, oh, you need 60 to 80% of your working income when you're retired. Well, I don't necessarily think that's true because you now have an extra 40 or 50 hours a week to golf, travel, do a hobby, spend money. You need 100% of your working income. Right? So what we want to look at is what do you need to run your household now while you're still working? And then we want you to have the same lifestyle when you're retired and then do the things that you want to do. So we just have a conversation about, what are your goals? Do you, on a day like today, it's snowy. I'm sure there are a lot of people listening that think, you know what, I wouldn't mind spending a month or 6 months at an Airbnb in Florida or, perhaps purchasing a property in Arizona so that you can get out of the cold. How do you do that financially? Right? So just looking and saying, okay, what's important to you? We have a lot of conversations now where 5 years ago wasn't a big conversation, but we have a lot of people that their kids are still living at home with them. And, they're having to help them financially to help them to be able to get out of the house. So having a discussion like that can affect your retirement plan as well too.
Yeah.
So just having a comprehensive plan and a conversation to uncover what are people's goals. It's not just, hey, let's throw a bunch of money in an RSP, tax-free savings, and hope for the best. We have a very clear articulated plan.
Yep.
And especially within, I'd say, the 2 to 3 years leading up to someone retires and the first year or two after, there's a lot more hand-holding because it's a big transition. You can imagine that you're getting that weekly or biweekly paycheck predictably in your bank account every single month, and then you retire. There's some anxiety, there's some apprehension about how do I then create a paycheck for myself? And you may be collecting Canada pension, old age security, a pension from somewhere else. But then how do you strategically take money out of your RSP and other financial vehicles so that you don't unnecessarily pay too much tax? So that's really what I love to do.
Yeah, well, that brings me to my next question.
Okay.
I'm sure this is close to many of the listeners' hearts. So in respect of retiring, or really at any stage of life of investing, how can I safely invest my money or save my money, pass my money on to my children, my spouse, my dependents, and still navigate the tax man?
The key is if you have registered funds, you likely have your wife named as a beneficiary. So God forbid something happens to you, the money rolls tax-free to her. But the key is making sure that you have a plan to decumulate your assets. So start taking them out. So to give you an example, I met with a lady yesterday. She's in her late 70s. Her husband passed away over 20 years ago. She's taking the minimum amount out of her investments. So the government sets a schedule. So when you have money that's in an RSP, when you turn 71, they say, okay, we've let you tax defer this money for so long. Now you have to take it out. So if you have $100,000 as an example, you have to take out 5.28% when you're 71. So $5,280. But the issue is that a lot of financial institutions just have you take out the minimum and don't do the tax planning aspect to say, you know what, let's get a little bit more out. Yes, the money's going to be, you're going to have to pay tax on it, but let's shift it and top up your tax-free savings or move it to another investment vehicle. Because this lady that I met with yesterday, I said, I don't think what's been articulated to you by your current financial advisor is that if you die tomorrow, your spouse is already gone. We can't roll that money tax-free to him. That money goes on your final tax return. So the government deems you to have cashed in your money on the day that you've died. So if you have an RSP or a RIF, a locked-in retirement account or a LIF, so from a previous pension plan, if you don't have anyone to roll that money over to, like a spouse or a dependent child, then it goes on your final tax return. And I said to her, it sounds awful to say, but the later in the year that you die, the worse it is because you've got, if you die, say in December, you've got months of Canada pension that's been paid out, old age security, then we're tacking a couple $100,000 on top. You're in the highest tax bracket. Do you know what the highest tax bracket is in Canada?
No.
53.53%.
Wow.
So it just went up. So it used to be at 220,000. Now it's now once you make 223,000 or more, then it's 53.53%. So the government's getting more money than your children or your family. So just putting together a tax plan, and that's my favorite part of my job. Like, I'm so excited for this lady. She's going to come back. I took her information. She's coming back next week. We have a plan that we're going to put together for her and show her, here's how we're strategically going to take out a bit more each year, shift it to your tax-free so that any money you don't spend will go to your kids with the least tax implications possible.
Right. That sounds excellent. Without disclosing any personal details, you've just shared one story. Can you share a success story where your advice and guidance really impacted the client in their retirement planning?
I have dozens of stories
Okay.
where I've had, widowed, more so ladies. Typically men will pass away before their wives. I had the one lady that I had done her taxes. And I said, I thought you had mentioned before that you had some investments, and it turned out this lady had over $1 million in our RSPs, and her husband had passed away. And I said, I don't want to scare you, but I just want to explain something to you. If you were to pass away tomorrow, this is what the tax bill is going to be, because we'd have to put the $1 million on our tax return. It was a $500,000 tax bill. So she just about fell out of her chair. Can I bring my son in tomorrow? I said, absolutely. So I explained, okay, this is what we need to do, because she was just taking out getting Canada pension in old age and waiting till age 71 to start taking the money out of the RIF. I'm like, this is the wrong approach. So let's be strategic about getting that money out. So we have a very clear articulated plan. TFSA is maxed out. And this woman, she's never going to spend all of this money, right? Her house is paid for. And so she's actually, she took her kids and her grandkids on a fabulous vacation right before the holidays. So she's watching her kids and grandkids enjoy the money with her. Not, maybe 15 or 20 years from now when she passes away, she leaves a chunk to them. So, we really try to think outside the box and help people as much as we can. So I could talk all day for stories about that sort of thing.
Yeah, and it sounds like it's very individualized, the advice that you give. I've been on your website, great website, by the way. Lots of advice on there and stories. But how can listeners best get in contact with you? Yeah,
we have our website, and that's kudos to I have a gentleman that does all my marketing and social media. So he's the one that set up the interview today. I have my full-time assistant, Jennifer. So if you call our office line, it's 519-258-1995. Jennifer's come up on 18 years of working for me. So she does all my paperwork, administrative work, so that I spend my day face-to-face with clients. And we have our website. It's Godfroy Financial, so GODFROY financial.com. You can book an appointment through there. We have a YouTube channel. You can download copies of my book. We have a lot of resources, an estate directory. So if you're listening to this and you're wanting to get things organized for your family, so, God forbid your health changes or you pass away, your kids know, where your banking, what your banking information is, where all your investments are, where you keep your will, etc. So that resource is right on the front page of our website.
Excellent. Well, Alynn, it's been a real pleasure speaking with you today, and certainly enlightening. Any last minute things that we haven't covered that you might just want to wind up with, or?
The one thing I want to point out right now is this time of year, if you have a tax-free savings account that is maxed out, when you go onto the government web, or getting close to being maxed out, when you go on the government website right now to check what your room is, what I found last year is they didn't update the tax-free contribution room up until about February. So for example, I logged onto my account. It says I have $14,000 of room. I don't, because I put $7,000 in last year, and then I have a new $7,000 of room for this year. So if you're a keener that wants to get your money in and get your tax-free savings maxed out, that's fantastic. Just make sure you click on a button there where it tells you what your transaction summary is, because not all of the financial institutions have sent all the information and it hasn't been populated into your tax-free savings account. So that's a way to save people a lot of headache, because if you over-contribute to your TFSA, the government dings you 1% per month until you get that money out. So that's the thing that I always caution people about, especially this time of year, because it's usually about 2 months until they get everything updated.
Yeah, well, thank goodness we've got people like you, because there seems to be so many tripwires out there, especially with the tax.
Yeah, and unfortunately, if you follow the news, we have a very large deficit in Canada right now, and how they recover the deficit is they cut programs and they increase taxes. So if you can just be mindful of some of those tips and tricks and keep more of your hard-earned dollars in your pocket, it's a good way to go. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Alynn. It's been great talking to you. I'm sure the listeners have got a lot out of this discussion. Welcome back anytime. We can extend this conversation, I'm sure. Great having you here today.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
That was Alynn Godfroy of the Godfroy Financial Group, sharing for us her wisdom of financial planning.